Well, good afternoon, Internet, and specifically Facebook. It's Alistair at Lazarus Training here. Good news, I'm off on holiday in a few days' time, and so I've been getting all my stuff ready for that, and this led to a conversation. Some people on one of our courses, and they're saying, well, what medicines, what sort of first aid stuff were you going to take with you on holiday? Now, I'm going to somewhere in North Africa. I'm planning to lay around beside the swimming pool for most of the time, so we don't need lots of really exciting first aid kit. But I have a small bag here of medicines that we're going to take with us just in case. And when I say us, there's just me and a couple of teenage kids going. So let's work our way down from the head down. So good old favourite, paracetamol. Yeah. Now you know this already. Good for pain relief. It's good for fevers and so on. Very kind. It's kind of quite good on the gut. The dosage and stuff is all on here. So decent shelf life, nice and cheap. I went to a supermarket and bought what they call the generic version rather than anything like Panadol, etc., just because it's cheaper. Now, along the same lines, a lot of people will know this drug for a variety of reasons, Ibuprofen. Now again, we've got the generic version here rather than the famous brands such as Nurofen, means you can normally get it cheaper. Now, sometimes the brands put a little bit of extra stuff in to change the mixture, but this is your standard Ibuprofen, a non-steroid anti-inflammatory drug, so meant for sprains and strains, but it's also good for headaches, and sometimes people will get a bit of a problem with their guts with it, particularly if you've taken it long term or got other healthcare issues and stuff, but it's all marked up on here, anything you should be worried about, but very, very popular for those strange mystery headaches that a lot of people get when they're away on holiday. Now, we've got two forms of pain relief here, and this opens up some options for us. Now, one option is that if we take the paracetamol, it normally lasts somewhere in the region of 4 to 6 hours, sometimes a little bit longer. And so when that's starting to drop, you can take the ibuprofen, and so as the pain relief from that kicks in, the paracetamol is wearing off. And it means it's one way of making sure that you're as comfortable as possible. Now, most of these sort of tablets, when you take them, take between 15 and 90 minutes to take effect. So you can plot when you think it's going to be wearing out, when you think you're going to give it the maximum dose, and then so alternating them may be an option. There is a school of thought as well that if you take them at the same time, they kind of amplify each other's effect. So depending on if you're happy for a period of downtime of pain relief, then you might want to try that. I'm personally a bit of a use them to cover the gaps between. So going from the head, going into the throat and into the lungs, we might want to look at a cough suppressant if we're going somewhere particularly dusty, even just some cough sweets or cough mixture perhaps. But we're going to move quickly into an area of much concern for most people that travel, the bowels. Now, someone much wiser than me said that travel broadens the mind and loosens the bowels, so we've got to be ready for what we could call traveller's diarrhea, but basically deli belly, whatever the name is of where you're going, you know what we're talking about. You're going to be spending a lot of time on the toilet. So, diarrhea relief. Now, again, I've got a high street, more common British supermarket brand, Asda, but Loperamide is the drug that we're interested in. Now, all these medicines, they have three names. One name is like a weird chemical name that only a mad scientist would know. The second name is what we call the generic, so Loperamide, and then the third name would be the one that the company that makes that drug calls it. So for example, you might know this stuff as Imodium. Already said, if you go for generic, you can get it cheaper, but we really kind of expect people to travel with a reasonable amount of stuff for the toilet. Now, you'll notice here I've got the two brands. So this is capsules. You take a couple of those once the tummy starts to go wrong, and then every time you do a poo, you take some more afterwards. But one reason why I've actually gone for a branded version of Imodium is these ones are called Instants. Basically, you put them on your tongue, and they dissolve on your tongue. Now, some people don't like swallowing tablets, etc. That's not why these are winners. It's that in some cases, when we get traveller's diarrhea, we also get vomiting. And if you swallow the tablets and then vomit them back up again, you don't get the effect. So these dissolve on the tongue and you get the dose even if you are feeling a bit sick. Now, because they are such a winner, I've found now that some of your high street chemists basically do the same thing. Now, if you buy the generic version, it costs about a third of the normal price. So you've got a school of thought of you save money, But to be honest with you, when it comes to Loperamide and traveller's diarrhea, you're probably just as well buying 3 times as much as you'd expect. Most of the boxes only have about 6 tablets in. So if you're taking 2 instantly, when you kind of got it sets on, you've only got another 4 bowel movements before you kind of run out of tablets, and it can last a couple of days. And also, don't forget, I'm travelling with a couple of other people as well. Now, this is where we're going to go a little bit sort of off-piste. When it comes to diarrhea, another thing I'd recommend you perhaps take with you is some sort of lubricant, something kind of like this petroleum jelly, Vaseline. Now, this just is something you can use to kind of look after the skin around your bottom, because if you wipe a lot, it'll get a little bit sore. But it can be used for other things as well. And depending if you're adventurous, you're off on some trip to Africa, if you get like a tick embedded in your body, what you can do is you can smear Vaseline over it in a heap and it will disengage. And it's much easier and generally better than trying to twist ticks and stuff out. This also leads us on to things like skin. I haven't got any sunblock in here. I've got a small lip sunblock just to remind me to mention sunblock. I haven't got too much of a sort of sun cream, but we'd also want something to look after the skin afterwards if someone of my complexion you get burnt. And the basic rule with skincare is if it's dry, so burnt skin after sunburn, then we want to make it wet, and we want to kind of use something nice and greasy like petroleum jelly. Or another favourite is things like Sudocrem. Now this is also quite good if you get any unfortunate rashes around your shorts and stuff from where you're swimming in the swimming pool, particularly with salt water, people get affected. So any kind of rash, something like Sudocrem will keep it nice and clean, and petroleum jelly, if the skin is dry, that will help it kind of retain its moisture. So dermatology, if it's wet, make it dry, so perhaps an iodine spray, and if it's dry, make it wet, perhaps Vaseline, etc. So we're getting towards the end of my little bag. Actually, I'm going to just go back on myself. I tend to travel with a couple of these type of things, these sort of energy gels. Now, it's not that I'm a professional athlete, I know I'm often mistaken for one, but the idea is that if you have got something like traveller's diarrhea and you don't feel very well, you still need to get some stuff into your body to help you kind of keep everything ticking over, and these gels are quite easily tolerated. Just squeeze into the mouth, they kind of absorb in the mouth, they're quite easy to swallow. Don't taste that nice, to be honest with you, but it's getting some basic nutrients into your body and will help keep you going for a little while. Now, other things that can happen to us is bites and stings and so on. So you might want to take a cream that you can apply just on top to take away the scratching and itchiness. One of the big problems with bites and stings, if we take away things like illnesses, malaria, dengue fever and all this sort of stuff, is that you just scratch it so much, you cause a sore, and then you've got a wound, and it's quite likely to get infected. So a cream that takes away some of the itchy sensation is quite useful, but we might want to tack it more centrally and take an antihistamine. Again, supermarket just down the road from where I live. I've gone for this hay fever relief and allergy one. I'm on these at the moment because of hay fever here in the UK in the summer, but they're also good for rashes and irritations from plants and bites, etc. I particularly like this one, which is sertraline hydrochloride, because it's quite long lasting, meant to last a day, and it doesn't tend to cause most people to be drowsy. Now, if you've never taken these sort of tablets before, there's something to be said for trying one when you're just in a normal environment, when you're quite sort of fit, well and healthy, to see if it causes drowsiness, particularly if you're planning something like driving or anything like that on a holiday. We say the same for people who are talking about medicines for altitude. And if we have more space, there's a couple of other things we might want to sneak into the bag. I'm still a big fan of aspirin. Now, on all medicines, it tells you on the back about reactions, problems and so on. But what we've got here is dispersible, i.e. dissolvable aspirin. And one of the good things for that is you can make it up in a glass of water, and if you have got a sore throat, you can gargle with it, but you must spit the stuff away, don't swallow it, and it can soothe the throat slightly and maybe even help bring out some of the infection that's within the throat. Now, there's a little bunch of items there, things like this, 50p and so on, 20p if you go to your sort of pound saver and so on. So you can put together a little bit of equipment quite cheaply. One thing you might have noticed about some of the boxes, they're a bit squashed. And the reason for that is that these have already been on travels with me. So expiry dates, if you're careful picking those, you can often get a couple of years out of them. But I always try and leave everything in the recognisable containers. So rather than wander around with a plastic bag full of white pills and trying to remember what they are, and maybe have to explain to the nice people at customs and immigration what those pills are, if we leave it in the container, it's clear to everybody what it is, and then you've got the instructions on there of what the dose is. So when I'm laying there beside the swimming pool, I don't have to worry about remembering all my BNF dosages and so on. The information is there. Any of you that are really spotters and into it, there's all sorts of books available that can tell you about all the drugs, and this gives you really good information on the actions and interactions between drugs, which is something important. So if you've got any complex medical conditions, which means you're on medication, I'd recommend that you make sure that you've got the medication for your holiday, and perhaps take a letter and or prescription, or a copy of your prescription, just to show people what it is. This means if you're stopped at customs and immigration, you can say to them, this is why I'm carrying this medicine. It also means if you lose it or run out whilst you're on holiday, it's going to be easier for you to get some. And you need to sort of plan ahead and make sure you've got what you need for covering it all. And then my final one is I always travel with this stuff, Tiger Balm. Now those of you who've done our first aid in remote locations courses, I've talked to you about this in some length. Quite what is it? Well, who knows? It's written on the side of it, it's very menthol in basis, but people use this for all sorts of different bits and pieces. And I find it quite good for if you've got any kind of bad chest or something, kind of expanded and help breathing. And it also, again, works on ticks and stuff like that. So I don't think we can pan onto our little thing there, is that this is going in the handbag, or going into the main baggage, not my hand baggage, but there's kind of a few key items there. Something for my head to get away with headaches, maybe aspirin to help with sore throats and chests and stuff, whole range of stuff associated with problems with my bowels. Travel broadens the mind and loosens the bowels, and then a few other miscellaneous sort of skin type things, rashes, bites and stings, getting sort of looking after the skin that might be getting all kind of manky, and ideally prevention's better than cure. Sunblock and stuff, particularly for the lips. People often forget about the lips. And then a few miscellaneous items at the end which may help in certain circumstances. So there's an idea. There's a bit more shopping to be done, so I'm not away for a few days yet. I'm going to be getting one of those dry powder sprays, the iodine. Savlon is a trade name that you can use for drying out those cuts and scrapes I've talked about. And maybe a few other bits and pieces like your more mundane plasters for when you cut yourself getting in and out of the pool. But there we go. The question we were asked a bit earlier in the week was, well, what would you take? So the idea of this short video is to give you some ideas of the kind of things we might pack that are easy to get, over the counter. If we're going to somewhere far flung, we might want to take a course of antibiotics with us, but in the UK they're prescription only medicine. So what can I walk into a chemist, pick up cheaply, pack, take with me, hopefully not use whatsoever, but which has got a decent shelf life, so maybe for next year's holiday I can just dig the stuff out again. Hope you found the video useful. Comment below, questions below. I'll be watching that for the rest of the day and try and catch up with anything there. And we'll come back later in the summer and put a few more videos and stuff together. Thanks for your time. Speak to you soon.